Well, there's a whole bunch of projects that I wanted to do a lot more than fix the bucket on my skid steer, but the bucket on my skid steer is in the way right now. So this is what I talked about doing, was taking some black pipe, cutting the top of it off to make kind of a cup shape or a U shape, and welding it onto the top of these quick disconnect pieces for the skid steer bucket. And it's worked out pretty well. So I fit everything so it was as tight as I could possibly get it on this pin while still being able to get the bottom pivot pin in, or the lock pin rather. And then I just welded multiple layers of weld all the way around this thing on top of the old piece of angle iron that was on there. So this is welded really solid, and I know I got a little bit of bubbles in here, but that's like the third layer on top of that, and that's because it was a little bit windy when I was welding a few minutes ago. So while it doesn't look good by any means, it'll definitely work better than having a single muffler clamp on it. So that's the right side. This is the left side, which is still really hot. And this one, I had to cut a ton of weld off of this thing. So the starting point of this piece wasn't quite as nice as the right side was, but I think I got it good enough. So these things now basically, ow, that's hot. Yikes. That's really, really hot. So this piece slides up underneath that piece, and then a pin goes down here, locks it into here on the bottom of the bucket. I'm gonna attempt to put all this stuff together, get the quick disconnect pieces back on the front of the skid steer, and there's so much play in everything. I bought a 1 1/4 inch drill bit, and my plan was to hog out all the holes where all the pivot points are and put these bushings in there, which is 1 1/4 OD, 1 inch ID. But even though the holes are really wallered out, trying to get a hole drilled from, you know, an oval shape 1 and maybe a 1/16 or 1 and an 1/8 out to 1 1/4 so you can put those bushings in is a ton of work. I messed up my wrist really bad trying to do it with a hand drill. I don't have a lot of heavy drilling equipment. I don't have a mill or anything like that. If I had a mill, it would be a lot easier to punch those out. Just get a 1 1/4 inch mill bit and just punch it right through there. Would have worked great, but I don't have all that heavy equipment, so trying to do it with a hand drill was not the smartest thing, so I stopped. But I'm gonna go ahead and try to get these on the front of the skid steer now, and then come pick the bucket up. I think this will work. I don't know how long that'll last. To be perfectly honest, it would probably be a good idea for me to still put some type of a clamp around that thing. And if they break again, to be perfectly honest, I'm just welding all that crap together, because I don't think I'll ever get another attachment for the front of this thing. And if I do, I'll have to either make some new angle brackets or cut the tops of these off and weld them on another bucket or something. But this is one of those, basically, the equipment has been neglected for so long, and it has had so many botched repairs on it over the years, that in order to get everything right, it would take a fortune. And for the amount of time that I'm going to use this machine, it's not really worth me spending tons and tons of money on. You can kind of see how bad this is wallered out. It wore, you know, 3/4 of the way through the grease groove in there. And part of the reason all this stuff is so worn out is just because all these joints are bone dry. Like, nobody has greased this thing in years. A couple weeks ago, I did some work on it. I put these brackets on here to hold the hydraulic lines from slapping around, because they were just slapping all over the place. So I made that bracket, made this bracket, so all these are nice and tight now. And then made another bracket for the back here to hold the lines. This one's not quite as heavy duty, but this one's just holding these the rubber hose and that one steel line in place. So all that's working. Slowly but surely, I'm getting this thing fixed up. I have some new hydraulic filters coming in. I do have a new oil filter, an engine oil filter for this. But as I said before, the bottom below the engine is full of dead leaves and stuff, so I got to clean all that out before I can really do anything. I do have a new seat belt for this as well, which I've been kind of waiting to take out and put on, because I wanted to get some of the leaks and stuff fixed before I start bolting stuff on. I have all new gauges to put in the gauge cluster. I want to put some LED lights up on top here underneath that grill, kind of pointing forward, so I can work at night with this thing. And then I'll probably put some smaller LED lights up here somewhere on the back, maybe right on this piece, so they can kind of point down over the back door or something like that, or I'll make a bracket coming off that comes out far enough to clear the door. But lots of little things to do. I got to straighten a bunch of these out and tack weld them back on. Not critical, but bothers me. I need to pressure wash the radiator because it's filthy. There's just a million and one things to do. This is not what I wanted to work on today. I wanted to work on my Massey Ferguson because I have a new set of hydraulic levers for the bucket, a couple of new hoses and some new fittings to put all that stuff on, and then I got to refill the hydraulic system in that. So if I can get this done quickly enough, then I'll jump over to the Massey Ferguson, and I got a buttload of yard work to do. As you can see, grass is quite long, got tons of dandelions, and I haven't quite finished flattening this out because it's been all muddy. I need to get my trailer out of here. I have those two big V trees to cut down, which I'm not sure if I'm going to tackle those today or not. It's pretty cloudy. It's mostly dead, that tree. It's a poplar. I have quite a few poplars, maples, and pine trees on my property. I don't have a whole lot of other types of trees, mostly poplars, maples, and pine trees. But the poplars around here, I got another 3 or 4 of them that are right there that are completely dead. That maple broke off a couple of years ago. So this is what happens when you own property. There's just never an end to the work. I got dead pine trees over there. I got dead pine tree over there. And then in the back of the property, there's just tons of down trees. So trying to get the Massey Ferguson and the case all fixed up so I can start really digging in and cleaning up my property. And then I still got extra skid steer tires to put on this thing because I still got 2 bald ones. The Bel Air needs a kingpin replaced so I can get a sticker on that and start driving that. And then the Sears tractors just always need tinkering, but one thing at a time. Let's get the bucket back on the skid steer. took a little work. Not too shabby. We're gonna do some digging and see how it works. Definitely better than it was. It cups like 2/3 of that thing. Well, I did a little digging with it. It definitely works. It's definitely better than it was. It's a little bit tighter. A little bit. I mean, there's still a ton of play and everything, but they definitely work exactly the way I intended them to. They grip that thing, and it's got like 3/4 of the way around that peg gripped now. So that's another thing fixed, at least for now. The bucket's fine. I don't need muffler clamps on this thing to hold it on. And boy, this thing runs really good. It does still smoke. Like I said, it does still need an oil change. And this thing gets stuck really easily. I mean, right here in the grass, this is a little bit slick, so it was just tearing this up. I got to rake that flat and throw some seed down. But I was trying to just get through this little muddy area over here on the edge of my property. And I mean, it just spins in the grass even. But, you know, the thing, it sinks down 6 inches and you're on the belly pan because the tires aren't very tall. So, you know, all that smooth area in the middle, that's from the belly pan. It just sinks right down in this stuff. So honestly, the Massey's got to drive through all this stuff. And the Massey does fantastic with its 4-wheel drive because it's so tall and narrow. It just grabs right down to the bottom and then digs out. Yeah, I mean, I got this thing stuck. I'm going to have to keep the skid steer off this side of the yard until probably June. And last week I was up here with the Massey. And I mean, even this, I tried to back blade this to flatten it out, but I'd almost gone up to the front pumpkin on the Massey. But I'll get all this stuff cleared up eventually. It's going to be a fun summer. Lots of stuff going to get done. I got all these old dead trees in here I got to get out and stuff too, but one thing at a time. Now it's time to pop the Massey high hydraulics off. So what I got is these hydraulic controls, which I've had for a few weeks now, but I didn't have the correct fittings for it. The only reason I bought this particular set of controls was because I paid like 45 bucks for it off of eBay. Guy must have had them on closeout. He bought the wrong ones. These are SAE 8 O-ring fittings. These are SAE 10 O-ring fittings, and my hoses are all 6. So what I did was I bought some 10 to 8 adapters, then some 8 SAE to, I think, 3/8 NPT thread elbows for the sides. And then on these, I got 8 to 6 adapters, because all these hoses I had just replaced. These are brand new. These are SAE 6 O-ring. So I'm going to reuse all of these, and then the new hoses are going to come off the side on the new controls. And I have brand new hoses for the feed and the return lines for the whole bucket loader controls, because those are all screwy too. So that's my next project.